Welcome, Spartans, to Podcast Evolved. Part of Evolved, your home for Halo. Podcast Evolved hosts original lore series and recaps monthly news. That's us. Our current lore series is Infinite Impressions. That's what you're listening to right now. I'm your host today, David, and I am with Aaron.
Hi, guys.
That's right, Irish only episode, guys. Super special, very unique. Don't get too many of them these days. What we're going to discuss on this episode of Infinite Impressions is the UNSC Intel. Before we do that, though, Aaron's going to give us a little bit of social housekeeping stuff.
Yes, we will do the socials or Oren will shout at us.
He will. He'll be angry.
Yes, he gets very strict on these things. Right. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is Evolved. We host a variety of shows. The current one you're listening to is Podcast Evolved. We are all about the lore. We do some news. You can go and listen to some of our previous lore series. We have the Road to Infinite and we have the character dossiers. Spoiler, we will probably have another character dossier again someday. We kind of had a character episode actually on the last one. We did talk about the characters of Halo Infinite.
We did, yeah, it's true.
Kind of hoping we're going to get some campaign DLC and we're going to have more characters, then we can do more character dossiers. We also have another couple of shows, just a few. We've got Mission Debrief, Builds with Blocks, Halo TV Plus, we have Redacted, we have Halo Book Club, and we have Halo Headlines. We also have a partnership with Josh and Will over at HCS Pro Talk, where they talk about all things competitive in the world of Halo. So you can go over there and listen to the guys. They are very knowledgeable, they have lots of energy. They are all about the multiplayer.
Yeah.
You can also learn more about all of our shows by going to the website. That's halopodcast.com. If you're already a fan of the shows, we would like to ask you to leave us a review and a rating on your podcast service of choice. We appreciate all the feedback. And we would also like to take a moment to thank all of our lovely, lovely patrons. You guys continue to support the show and help us do what we do. And you guys are awesome.
They really are. Thank you guys so much for all your support and help.
Even this week, I saw another email come in that we have a new patron, and I was like, still blown away by that.
That's great. How are we getting new patrons?
I know, it's crazy. I was uploading an episode the other day, and I just looked at like how much people are donating. Just had like a mild moment of shock, going like, wow.
People are crazy.
They are.
You guys are crazy.
Oh, look, I have it here. I will give a shout out to our last new patron. That was 20 hours ago. That's James Powell. Hi, James.
Thank you, James.
Right. Head over to patreon.com/Halo Podcast Evolved if you would like to learn more about becoming a patron and the perks and benefits that come with it, such as unique swag, access to early episodes, and soundtracks. And finally, we encourage all of our listeners to support us through Audible. You can sign up with Audible and take advantage of the growing collection of Halo novels all in one place, along with thousands of other novels, guided wellness programs, and more. Use the URL audibletrial.com/podcast evolved and you can get started today. That's all of the housekeeping out of the way, so I will lead us into last week in Zeta Halo because I can say I did not play any Halo. I have fallen down a dark hole of going back to the First Division.
Oh man, I was just thinking about Division the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I've started Anthem, just because it's been on my to-do list for ages and it's on Game Pass, so I'm like, I'll just do it before they actually kill it. And then I'll just see what all the fuss was about, how bad it was. And I'm playing it, and all I'm thinking is, man, I'd like to play Division right now. I wish I was playing Division. It's really cool. I actually do. Anthem is cool, I'll tell you that much. It's got some cool parts to it. There's a lot about it I don't like. But the actual gameplay, the suits and how they work is actually pretty cool. I am liking the customization and the kind of bits and pieces you get to do. You get to use the controls, it's kind of fun. I would like to see what it'd be like if you were had a team and had a full squad. But I guess that'll never happen and the game will die at some stage in the near future, I'm sure. What have you been doing on Division 1, you crazy bastard?
My niece and nephew have decided that they would like to play, so I was like, right, I'll start a new character, I'll play through the tutorial bit, and then I'll play with them. Because this will be their first sort of experience of a multiplayer drop-in, drop-out game of that sort.
Yeah.
I'd imagine if or when co-op Halo drops in the next few months, we will probably do that. But seeing as that's not coming out in May, we'll probably have to wait a wee bit longer.
Yeah, bummer.
That was really it. I think they must have spotted me playing it. I just took a notion one night and was like, I craved a little bit of snowy New York.
Yeah, the setting in that game was so good.
I'd played a little Division 2 as well because I hadn't used my Series S to try that, so I was enjoying the like super fast load times.
Oh yeah, you were on the OG box, weren't you, beforehand?
Yes, I had my 1X, so that was very slow, but it turns out when you like have Division sort of suspended, and I know it doesn't really because it loses connection to the server, but when it loads back in about 20 seconds, it's great.
Yeah, that was the big thing I noticed because I think we were still playing Division 2 when 1X came out. And that was the big difference that I think we noticed was like, oh man, this thing loads like crazy. Like Division 2 was super improved with the new generation.
You used to fast travel much faster than I did. Funny, I noticed it when I was playing and I would matchmake with people and it would tell me a new player has joined your group, and then you wait 30 seconds for the new player to appear. And you're like, oh, that's because they're loading. And then they drop into your game and you're like, oh, you're here now. So apart from that, I'll be honest, I haven't been playing a lot. It's not that I haven't been playing Halo, because I know some people are a little down on Halo at the minute, and I can't necessarily blame everyone, but I haven't really been in the mood to play a lot, so it's just like I'm going to do a little comfort food gaming. While you mentioned Anthem, I did enjoy the flying in Anthem.
Had you played it?
I played a bit of it. I might have just played like the trial or demo or whatever it was back when it first came out, but like I enjoyed the Iron Man flight. All that stuff's pretty good.
Yeah, it's well done.
It had potential, it just needed other stuff. I think the saddest thing I'd heard about it was, I forget what it was about 6 months ago or something, and they'd mentioned that the last event, whatever it was, like a summer event, or maybe it was the Christmas event from the year before, and the decorations were still up in the world because no one had updated the server to take them down. It was just like, oh
man.
Yeah. I've almost had an urge to go back and play Destiny 2 because I hear good things about that.
Ooh. Yeah, I heard that's on the up. The new DLC is supposed to be pretty good on that.
Yeah, that could possibly be next on my list, I have to see. Also watching Picard, because it turns out they didn't take Picard off Amazon, so I watched the first episode of that tonight, or season 2.
Nice.
That's about it. Haven't done much else. Nothing terribly exciting.
That's okay. I've only done a little bit of Halo that has regarding to mission debrief. So I'm replaying the game on normal difficulty, but I've put on a bunch of skulls to make it like fun and kind of different. Just because like I've played through the campaign a few times now, so I was like, okay, I need something else to kind of jazz this up for mission debrief. The skulls are ridiculous. I will say the bandana skull is crazy good in what it does, because it actually eliminates cooldowns for your equipment. So you have infinite grapple hook, which is ridiculous, but it's pretty good. It works really, really well. So I have to say I'm quite enjoying that. And that's pretty much what we're doing. We're kind of, mission debrief. We break down our missions, and even though Halo Infinite has kind of an unusual setup, we've actually broken it down pretty well. So we're taking like open world areas separately and then doing missions separately, and then talking about like the FOBs and high value targets and stuff like that. So it's been good fun. It's been really good fun, to be honest. So that's more or less all that I've been doing. I haven't played multiplayer in so long. Probably can't play multiplayer. If I tried, I might just like not have fun times. I imagine I'll probably get bossed out of it. There's rumored of some kind of new mode and stuff like that, so I don't know, we'll see.
There is a post just went up. I just caught it before we started recording.
Oh my.
It's a tactical, what is it called? Hang on, I will pull it up. We will get this live.
Ooh, live news.
The mode is called Tactical Ops. It is the next event in Halo Infinite, and it has arrived as of today, apparently.
Ridiculous. Okay. Season
1 Tactical Ops.
What do you do?
That's a question I can't answer, but that is a question that the folks over at HCS Pro Talk could answer.
Good call, good call.
Go and listen to Josh and Will.
They'll teach you all about the mode.
Why to me, without reading anything, Tactical Ops sounds like something Slayer related. It is. It's Tactical Slayer event. That means I'm not going to play it. SWAT was never my thing to begin with, so we'll just avoid that.
Oh, I did like SWAT.
I'm very bad at SWAT.
I am also bad. I just appreciate the fact that everybody was more or less on even terms. That like even if I could somehow manage a headshot, I get a kill, and that made me feel good. even if I died like 10 times to get one kill. That one time you pull off a headshot kill just felt good. But I know it is tough, obviously.
That's the Aaron mythology or methodology for playing, where you just go like, I got one kill, I died 30 times, but I got that one kill, and I'm pleased with myself.
Yeah, exactly. Okie dokie, so, Infinite Impression, guys, here we go. Last week we tackled, well, it might not be last week, but like the last Infinite Impression episode, we talked about the characters of Halo Infinite. So the obvious ones: Master Chief, the weapon, Fernando Esparza. I won't tell you who that is if you don't know, but you probably should know by now. There was Atriox, Escharum, Jaga, and the Harbinger were all discussed, as well as many of the other supporting cast that were in the game. There's some really good supporting cast in Halo Infinite, so it was actually a pretty fun episode to record and talk about some of our kind of special mentions that kind of got shout out, and a few characters we felt could have been involved more in the game, I think. But like we said at the start of the show, Aaron said, DLC maybe, will we get new DLC for campaign? Like, feeling that this is what Infinite's supposed to do, so let's see where we go from there. We got any new characters or fleshing out the current characters that we have. Today, we are going to discuss the UNSC intel. So, you're probably aware, Halo Infinite has a whole bunch of audio logs, and they are categorized by Spartan, UNSC, Banished, and Forerunner. So, we're breaking them out in the same kind of way. So, today we're talking about the UNSC intel. There are a few different subcategories to these. In fact, I'm going to say there is 4 by the quick looking at. We have the UNSC recovered files, the UNSC Infinity's approach, the prisoner, and outpost intel. I'd say we will start at the top and work our way down. So some of these audio files are kind of hit and miss, but some of them do work really well as like small little mini audio dramas. They're familiar, like we've all had audio files in games before. You know what you're getting yourself into here. The game's mechanic is pretty good, where you hear the little ping noise. I hear it in my sleep for sometimes because I was listening to it so much. I was so ravenous to find all the Halo intel in my first playthrough. And then you get the little green light that is more or less a tablet that can be used and accessed to play this file. You can play it straight away, or you can go into the menu and play it. It will play over gameplay, which is really good, so you should always do that.
If you have to stand beside the source of the audio log to listen to it, you have failed as a developer, and I want you to know that.
Yes, you have failed this city. My God, yes. That's a bad way to do things. So the first up are the recovered files. So these are 4 audio logs, and they're automatically unlocked and discovered at key junctions in the game, the golden path, if you were, on the campaign narrative. They're essentially journal entries of Halsey, each one giving a further glimpse into the intentions of the mission that Chief was on at the beginning of the game. So talking about the weapons creation, the urgency of the UNSC, and they're prepared to assault Zeta Halo, which is interesting because it was clearly a planned mission. I liked these. I thought these were really good. They're spread out a fair bit across the game, so it takes you a while to get the story out. It answers loads of the obvious questions that you would have had the second you started the game, because I've been on record before, I don't like how this game starts. The recovered files, for me, I think should have been in the game as cutscenes. I'd love to see these characters interacting with each other visually, than not just having these audio files. That's my own opinion. The recovered files are pretty good. So you have the plan, the question, the mission, and weapon. My own kind of notes say, like, the question pretty much has Halsey talking about the setup for the Shadows of Reach novel by Troy Denning, which is pretty cool. And we had a fun time when we were doing that book, kind of hypothesizing what the team was getting, and to have that confirmed in the game was really satisfying. That was kind of cool. The mission does talk a bit more about the weapons creation of creating a new AI, her specific parameters around that. A bit of Halsey and John interaction here, which is interesting. And the last one does refer to Locke as being, like, Halsey pretty much says, hey John, if you can't do this, Locke will step up and do this mission. So John is like, obviously I'll do the mission. That was interesting that at least at this point in time, Spartan Locke was still kicking around. I don't really have anything else to add here. I've kind of talked a good bit. Aaron, have you any strong opinions on the recovered files?
Not overly. They're fairly, like, they provide useful information, but they're not anything terribly exciting, I feel like. Like you said, it's the plan, it's the setup for Shadows of Reach. You've got the reference to the weapon being created, and then I assume, because we mentioned Locke being off on another mission before we get to Zeta Halo, then that hopefully means he's still alive. There's not a huge amount else to kind of pull from these, really.
There's only 4 and they're kind of self-descriptive, but I kind of like them. The next ones we have is Infinity's Approach. So these are located in and around fobs. So each fob will have an audio log to give you a glimpse into the harrowing plight of the UNSC Infinity just as they're attacked as you're watching the cutscene and the intro of the game. So it focuses primarily on the perspective of Lasky. There's 12 in total. They're unlocked in a narrative order, regardless of whatever order you find them in. I like that. I like that they do that. So you're always getting the story told to you in the correct order, regardless of which fob or which audio log you pick up in sequence, which is cool. So there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to read them out, but they're pretty cool. They talk to you about, obviously, how Lasky, what he was doing, various kind of instructions he was giving and orders and stuff, and his own thoughts before the Zeta Halo mission. They kind of talk to you that Infinity is kind of lagging behind the rest of kind of the fleet. So there's a fleet already at Zeta Halo, and Infinity is waddling their way in for whatever reason. I think it's to do with the weapon preparation for the weapon. Then there's some key pieces of information in here that I wish were better told to you in the game. Locke is mentioned again over at like Operation Breaker Trip. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that sounds interesting. So obviously, like Aaron said, he's away doing his own thing. Blue team were sent away, so they easily just write blue team out of the game. Like they're on another mission. That Halsey thought she could put them on another mission, and then Lasky was like, "Ho ho ho! No, I have them on another mission. You can't have them." And that was kind of that. They're gone. They're out there doing blue team stuff. 0 Hour talks about how it pretty much calls out that the weapon was deployed. She wasn't deployed via John. She was done via the Infinity somehow. Like we kind of joked on Mission Debrief saying it was like the ultimate 5G or whatever, that they managed to deploy the weapon onto the ring as they were being under attacked.
I like to imagine the shooter in a chip from space. That's how I
Yeah.
picture it. Just stick her in the Mac gun in a chip and launch her at the Halo.
Yeah. And should plug in somewhere. Should be fine. What else is there? Oh, the Taurus audio log introduces Spartan Griffin, who I feel like was meant to be a bigger character and will be a bigger character coming up, because I think Kelly's gay book, which I'm blanking on the name,
Rubicon Protocol.
nailed it, is going to talk about these Spartans, and I think they're the events that take place right after this. So it's all essentially about getting Lasky off the ship. Chief is in a few of these. They're like fighting through the Infinity, trying to get to the hangar bay. Chief has to split off to hold the forces, and Lasky essentially gets away. And then he calls for everyone to abandon ship as he kind of like gets. So Lasky gets out. These Spartans we know end up on the ring. We don't know where Lasky is after this. We just know that he gets off the Infinity, presumably before the ring is teleported away. And again, there's some interesting information in the text that's kind of interesting. I missed a lot of stuff, a lot of context, because I listened to the audio logs as I picked them up in game. But if you go into the menu, each audio log has a blurb of text associated with it. There's some crazy information in those that you won't know, and sometimes they're not even talked about it in the actual audio log it's referring to. So that's kind of crazy. I guess when I said there's lots of information in here. I wish they were in the game proper. I wish there was a setup cutscene that told us this story right before we're introduced to Chief fighting in the hangar bay, and no crazy context of what the hell's going on. Again, that's my own opinion. Aaron, how do you feel about the Infinity's approach?
Quite like this one. Yes, I did listen to. It wasn't the last mission debrief, but the one before it. I was listening to it today, and I heard you specifically mention that there's information in the text that you don't see, and I was like, oh, right, okay, I need to go and look at that. I like the context it gives you, like you said. It would have been nice to have maybe seen this a la Halo 4 cinematic intro. Like, there's no reason we couldn't have seen Infinity's approach and then cut straight to that fight with Chief and Atrax. Like, that all would have made perfect sense. So I'm not sure why. Like, granted, I'm sure a little bit of the cutting out a few of the cutscenes, maybe of escorting Lasky through the ship or something, but like, it feels, when you listen to this, it feels like it was a Spartan Ops style cutscene. It has that same vibe. Like, you can totally picture this but I do at least appreciate the setup. I did roll my eyes when I heard them that they had retasked Blue Team. I was like, for fuck's sake. I was like, of course you retasked Blue Team. It's like, oh, Blue Team aren't here. They're over there doing this thing. Thanks, guys. I'm kind of hoping they'll be back for co-op, but who knows. Also, very curious to know what Locke's mission is, if we ever get an answer to that.
Yeah, I'd say we will. Breaker Trip, I feel like that's a thing we might know someday. I feel like that's a novel. I feel like Locke and Osiris are novel characters now. I'd be surprised if we get to see them, because almost all of the voice actors are big voice actors. They're big names. So if they're pulling them back, you'd hope they get good use out of them. We'll wait and see what happens. But the next two novels I know we have that are going to include some of Osiris. So Vale is still kicking around, because we know that because she's in the book. That's that. We have, after that is The Prisoner. These are really cool and answers some obvious questions. So The Prisoner are 7 audio logs that tell a chilling tale of the UNSC combat medic Lucas Browning, who was taken hostage by the Banished and to aid in the Harbinger's release. Obviously, because you need a human to activate foreigner technology, the Banished are clever enough to figure that out, so they get their own prisoner to do so. Some of these are off the beaten path, but they are worth the extra exploration to gain an additional glimpse into the ramifications of this new entity's presence. These are weird. I like the story. It is like a well-told mini-story. It doesn't make sense how they're being recorded, though. This is a prisoner recording things that has happened to him in the past, and then it quickly becomes things that are happening to him right now. So, like, are the characters being recorded not aware that he's recording them? Which seems really weird, because in one tape he's with Jack Locke, who is imprisoning and torturing humans. Surely they search this dude. He shouldn't have some easy... And he's a combat medic, right? He's not an ONI operative. How is he doing this? How is he recording this stuff? Some of them are really weird, and so I guess I wish they would have told the story better. If they were told from other points of view, I think would have made more sense than just being the prisoner's recordings, which feel kind of strange to me. Also, I think the reveal of the Harbinger was already kind of done. So, like, some of these stories kind of where he's describing her and how he feels and how weird it is. Like, if they didn't reveal who or what she was when you were listening to these, they'd have way more impact, I think. They'd be way more interesting. But the story they do tell is good. Like I said, it is a human prisoner being tortured and used and abused by the Harbinger and the Banished to activate various things. And then, for some reason, the Harbinger seems to take a shine to this fella and breaks his brain telling him things. So, I don't know. What do you think, Aaron?
I do like these ones. The context of how these exist is weird. I don't know if was this the created, like, pillaging information where they could? Was it recorded through his neural implant or what? You know, that end of things is weird. But there's a few things in this that I think the most obvious one is, I forget, it's when when the Harbinger first speaks to him and she silences him with the Gravemind line, I shall speak and you shall listen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was good. I didn't even cop that. That's cool.
Yeah, I know these words. They've said these before. So that's interesting. Like, it teases you a little bit and you're like, is there a connection between the Harbinger and the Gravemind? I don't think it gives you much more context for her. Like, you get that from, what do we call the monitor? I've forgotten her name. You get that from her logs with the artifacts.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't get as much context for who Harbinger is here, but, like, it's interesting to find out how they released her, but then again, you could have just made that logical assumption of they must have got a human to touch it, because anything in Halo involving the Forerunners requires a human to touch it.
And there's plenty of humans kicking around on Zeta Halo.
No, apart from that, like, I like the idea, it's the little tease, that's the two things I take away from this, that, like, exact line of the Gravemind, and then the fact that she, like, breaks his brain, kind of like how the Gravemind drove the ancient humans mad when it spoke to them. Like that, those were the two links in my mind with this.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I think they cover that in Silentium, where the first humans that found the precursor, the primordial, committed suicide after they spoke to it, because what it told them was too horrific to live with. that sort of similar thing where this man clearly went absolutely insane. Like, he didn't go insane from the banished torture, but he spoke to her for a while, and then, like, she sort of threatens him at the end. She's like, no, you come with me, I have more to tell you. And you're like, oh, shit.
I wonder what was going on there, what the point of all that was.
Yeah, they're not bad. I think our new motto for these will be, instead of this meeting could have been an email, it will be these audio logs could have been a cutscene.
Yeah, I like that. Could have been a cutscene.
This was a good 3-minute cutscene and done with. They do keep you going. Will I mention this last set then?
Yeah, the Outpost intel. There's a few of these that are kind of all over the shop. So these are obviously the intel that you find in and around the various outposts. There's sometimes the outposts have both UNSC and Banished, and they're contextual to the outpost they're in for the most part. My only real kind of notice them is that there is a character throughout some of these that interspaces, and he's a First Lieutenant Floyd. He's obviously like a scout, and he's kind of telling various stories. He seems very competent, and he's just reconnaissing the various areas and marking targets and looking for help and stuff like that. And I like that. I wish there was more of that, where this was a character throughout a whole bunch of these, telling you a little story and picking bits together and stuff like that. So that was kind of it. There's a few interesting ones, but I'll let Aaron go ahead. Go on, what have you got for me?
Well, some of these, like you said, some outposts you get like 1 or you get 2. Sometimes they can be a little bit of a pain to find. A few times I had to hunt for a few. Let's see, which ones do I particularly call out here? The one to Andrew Valeros, where it's this kid's mother leaving a message to him about how she said she would come back from the war, but she's not going to because she's loaded a warthog up with explosives. I think this is the one. It's the base where they're breaking down the tanks and vehicles, and then when you go out the far end of it, there's like a little canyon and there's rocks blown up and there's a dead warthog there. So this is like where she does her last stand. It's quite cool. One of them is a soldier who escapes from a detention camp. I quite like that one because he's freaking out and he's like, oh, I'm out. It's like, how did they not spot me? Maybe they did spot me. No, they didn't. He's like, right, order of business number 1, get these handcuffs off. And then you hear him smash them on a rock a couple of times, like, we're going to have to reassess order of business number 1. And you're like, okay, I like some of these.
Yeah, I do like them because I always, like I said, I listened to them as I found them. So when I was doing them, like, getting context about an outpost you're about to take out is really cool. They're really flavorful. They build up the little mini story of your outpost, and I think they're good for that. They're very good for that. Some of them are anyway. Some of them are kind of nothing.
It's the sort of thing I typically only looked for them after I took the outpost, so you had the problem of going, context I didn't have before I took the outpost that I've now taken. So the odd time that was a little bit of a nuisance. They're pretty well done. There's a couple there where they give you context like, oh, this facility's where they're holding POWs. And you're like, oh, right, okay, now this makes sense when I go in here as to why all these guys are chained up. This is the interrogation place.
Yeah.
You've got the one where they're talking about the pit they're digging. I like the one, is it the one for trench warfare or is it convalescence, where it's a Marine and he's clearly patrolling a battlefield, and every so often he like swears, pauses and shoots another downed enemy, and then he moves on and he's explaining about how the trench is important and they call it the spine of the halo, and they give you little clues like that. You get the one where the Spartans hijack the Phantom. That's
a cool little story, yeah.
You're hearing from Spartans and you're hearing about them talking about what they're doing, because you only see the Marines all the time. So you're always wondering what happened to these people. Where are they? Where did they go? They do a pretty good job of giving you context, and they're better if you find them before. But chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably did like us and mopped up collectibles as you found them and then maybe searched them out after you cleared an area, in which case they just a little bit less context. I don't know how you'd fix that though, whether you'd need to find them both before you could take an outpost.
Yeah, unless they were like an objective, or taking in an outpost you had the option to go and gather intel first, and then that would lead you to like, oh, here's a hidden cave, or here's another weapon nearby or something. maybe you could do something like that where the actual outpost had mini objectives for you.
Something would be nice with them, but there are a lot of them. I will link to all of these in the show notes, so if you're sitting here and you're thinking, I don't remember that, I will link to the 4 sets of audio logs. There are numerous parts, but thankfully the Halo community has been pulling them all together. I think I looked, there is like a few videos of all the audio logs, that's everything, and it's about an hour and 40, hour and 30 minutes. Like, it's a lot of audio.
It's a good chunk of audio, yeah.
Yeah, I think like the Outpost Intel is the longest. I think it's about 9 minutes in total. 10 minutes 7 seconds actually. I just pulled it up there. It's a pretty good, decent long. You can just listen, put them on, have a quick listen, see what you think. Like, the production quality on them is pretty good. Like, I'd say they're on a par. They're maybe not quite as good as Sadie's story, because I feel like occasionally there's a little less production in them. It's all sort of like slightly, sometimes crackly, distorted radio communication, whereas...
Oh, the audio quality is terrible. Like, I've been pulling these out and putting them into Mission Debrief, and sometimes they just sound so bad.
Yeah, I had that too, where I pulled up a couple of videos because I was trying, before I linked them into the show notes, I was going like, oh, this must be poorly recorded, and then I was like, no, this is what this sound like, which I suppose goes for the theme of like, these are fragments of information that have come from people evacuating the Infinity and the rest of it, but they're not really on a par with like the world building and the quality of audio you have in the background for something like Sadie's story, where I feel like there was just a little more Foley work involved, almost. They're not terrible. I don't know, I'm not overly excited with them. Like, they give you more information, but also it's stuff that, like we both agree, probably could have just been in the game. A lot of these audio logs could have been an NPC. I didn't need the audio log from the Spartan that scoped out the POW camp. It would have been nice to have the Spartan or the Marine on the hill where the audio log was, waiting for you. That was maybe the way to do it.
That would be great. And you have a conversation with a character like First Lieutenant Floyd, and maybe he's just around these outposts scouting them out, and he gives you information when you meet him. Like, I would love that.
They go to the bother of setting this up, and you come along and you go, oh, here we are, here's the bedroll, and here's the sniper rifle, and the crates and the lamps and stuff, and you're like, but there's no one here. The same, like, if you had been going through that canyon where the Marine that left the, like, note to her son was, and you come across her in a little cutscene, and she's dying, you know, in the remains of the Warthog, and then you go and attack the base, that probably would have been cooler than finding her datapad after the fact. I know some of these take place further in the past, but I think like they could have worked that stuff.
All I'll say is, when it came to text blurb, the Andrew Valeros one, the one about the Marine who like packed it full of C4 and stuff, in the blurb of that is key information that tells you that the Halo was moved via in space, or not in the system they were in at the beginning. And that's never really communicated to properly in this game, and it's just there in a piece of text attached to an audio file that you'd never know. It's not even relevant to the piece of audio file it's playing. So I was like, why the hell is this crazy piece of information here? Because that answers a lot of questions, obviously raised a whole bunch of other ones of like, where's the rest of the Infinity? Where's the rest of the crew? Infinity had like 18,000 people. It had, I think it was like 7 or 8,000 crew. There's only about 2,000 bodies when Chief does his scan at the beginning of the game. So where's the other thousands of the crew? Because there isn't that many on Zeta Halo either. So it's like, holy crap, where is this? So the fact that it's just there, it annoyed me. It annoyed me that it was just hidden in there.
It is, yeah, like listening to you guys talk about it on Mission Debrief. When you think about the fact that the planet that the Halo was around isn't there in the skybox, when you look up, you go like, oh yes, this does make sense, but you're also like, right, I wouldn't have thought about this at any point otherwise. Also, my own theory to that, I know I'm not on Mission Debrief, is that the Halo did exactly the same thing that the chunk of Halo did in Nightfall. It emergency slip-spaced when it was damaged. And I think that's why it moved.
That makes sense. That does make sense.
But again, that information, you know, in a cutscene of some description, like that cutscene with Chief drifting out into space, imagine how cool that would have been if that panned out into a wide shot and you saw like the blink as the Halo and all the debris and Master Chief disappeared into slipspace. That would have been cool. Although then we would have to answer the question of how did Atriox get out of the hangar bay and back onto the Halo? There's a lot of things. Although I suppose those two things didn't happen at the same time, didn't they? Not because he got off the Infinity
and got down to her Cortana, yeah. So like, there's a bit of time.
And then
there
she blew up the Halo, so that would maybe make sense then. But see, also, like a lot of that timeline stuff, because you haven't seen any of it and you only get it after the fact, it's confusing. So, like, I do get your point. It's a little bit of an annoyance. Kind of the same way that Halo 4 kind of starts, at least like they give you some context in or Halo 5, they give you some context with the debrief of the guys in the Pelican, but they also don't tell you anything before that. You're like, how did they get in touch with Halsey? Why is this all happening now? Why are you on this mission? So like 343 have a little bit of a history of this.
There was comics though and stuff that led into Halo 5, and there was a bit more information out there, like in between 4 and 5. Not a huge amount, but like definitely more than what we had going from 5 to 6 or 5 to the Infinite, you know. Lots of audio, lots of more audio to come. We're going to be talking about Banished on the next Infinite episodes. Some of those outposts, they are, I'll tell you now, I don't know if I'm going to be on that show. They are the least interesting, in my opinion, audio logs in the game, are the various Banished pieces. So that's kind of it for the show. So I guess just everybody, thank you for joining us. You can find all of our episodes on our website, halopodcast.com. You can also search for our unique podcast feed on every different places. We have a whole bunch of them, one for each of the kind of main shows, and obviously the main show that you're listening to right now is on the main feed. That should have everything. Another special shout out to all our patrons, guys. Thank you very much. Shout out to new patron James. Hello, buddy. Head to patreon.com/Halo Podcast Evolved if you want to learn a little bit more. Thank you very much for any support you should choose to give us in any way. We do have a voicemail function, and we haven't gotten one in a while, so if you want to talk in, you want to give your own Halo Infinite impressions, do so. Give us a shout. Tell us anything Halo related you got. Any questions, you want to talk, we will get you on the show. So that's 205 Evolved, which is 205-386-5833. And with that, I've been your host, David, and until next time, evolve.
Evolve.